Over the last few months, it's been fascinating to see how the slowing down of humanity, the virtual stopping of air traffic and the motorways being clear, has allowed the air to clear. Cities that have been shrouded in smog for decades suddenly have bright blue skies. The birds are actually singing louder now that the hubbub of traffic has quietened and they can hear one another. It's almost as if nature has taken a big sigh of relief as it relaxes from all of the pollution and noise that we human beings seem to throw at it. The traffic levels may be starting to pick up again, but I really hope that we won't go back to that manic busyness that seems to have consumed so many in our society, and that we think about the damage that we've been causing to creation. Well, this week we're looking at Psalm 8, which is written to make us stop and look at the wonder of the created world and to encourage us to give thanks for the one who created it. The psalm is a reflection on the greatness of God and the beauty of his creation. And as I was reading through Psalm 8 this week, I was reminded of my childhood self. As a child, I didn't go to church. I knew very little about the Christian faith. But I distinctly remember being fascinated by the enormity of the sky at night. I loved to go out, if I was allowed, on a clear winter's night and look up in amazement at the countless twinkling lights and the brightness of the moon. Somehow, looking up at that vast expanse of the heavens, I could sense the Creator. In those moments, God was very real, even though I didn't know him personally. In creation, we get a glimpse of the Creator, because as Psalm 8 verse 1 tells us, God has set his glory in the heavens. If we will stop and look up, something of the wonder and majesty of God is there to be seen. And as verse 2 reminds us, it is through the praise of children and infants that God establishes his kingdom. You know, I think as adults, we so often forget to look up from our busy lives. We don't have time to stare aimlessly into space. We know that we should pray and we want to spend time with God, but we have chores to do and work and stuff to be getting on with. When I consider your heavens, says the psalmist, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars, which you have set in place. What is mankind, that you are mindful of them, human beings, that you care for them? Look up, says the psalmist. Stand for a moment in childlike wonder. Realise that the vastness of the universe, in it you are so tiny and so small and insignificant. What are you that God should be mindful of you? Who are you that God would care for you? In all the boundless expanse of creation, each one of us is nothing more than a tiny speck, and all of life's busyness is just a moment in eternity. Yet God has created us in his image, made a little lower than the angels, we read, crowned with glory and honour. Verses 6 to 8 reflect back to the creation story in Genesis 1, and there we read in verses 26 to 27. Then God said, "Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, over all the creatures that move along the ground." So God created mankind in his image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them. As we stand in the midst of creation, we are reminded of our smallness, but at the same time of God's attention to every detail of creation, including us. You are handcrafted by God, unique, one of a kind, not mass-produced in a factory. God didn't stamp you out of a mould on a production line. Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, said God. We may feel small, but we are certainly not insignificant. Humankind was created for a purpose, to live, to thrive, to care for one another, and to look after God's created world, to be rulers over the works of God's hands. Psalm 8 reminds us of our responsibility as created beings to be guardians of the whole of God's creation. When God had finished creating the world, he saw all that he had made, and it was very good. Our world is a beautiful, wonderful thing. So this week, take time to stop and look up. Stand for a moment in childlike wonder. Hear the birdsong. Really look at the created world. Breathe it in. Sense God's presence in creation. And then pause for a moment and give thanks to the one who created all things. Join the psalmist in singing God's praises. Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth.